Msaki!
Hey, finally.
Hello!
Sure. After everything, here we are.
It's been weeks. It's been months. I'm so
Oh,
happy to finally get to chat to you. How you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really good. And yourself?
Fantastic. What were you doing in Pretoria this evening?
I was singing at a UN Women's function.
Oh,
One of their
cool.
directors is leaving. Yeah, so I went to go say goodbye. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out something. Can you hear me well? And
Perfectly. Can you hear me
yeah,
well?
yes, yeah, so that's what I went to do. But I haven't slept since my flight from Zanzibar last night. So I'm a
Tell me
bit
about
fragile.
Zanzibar. So I love Zanzibar. First of all, it's the password to all of my computer login stuff. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I,
I
ha- I, ha-
don't blame you.
I have a dog. Oh, I had a dog named Zanzibar. I love that place.
Oh, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, I had a number that as well. And I think, how do you feel normal after being in paradise? So I think I'm still trying to come back to it.
Was
Uh,
it your first time
but
there?
I'm good. First time there, yeah. I mean, it kind of does remind me a little bit of Kenya. I've spent a bit of time there and think I need to go back quite soon. Yeah.
And were you performing there as well?
Yeah, this is also the thing. Like, I'm coming back from a really surreal time because Saudi Zabuzara is where I performed, and that was a bit of a dream come true. Um, do you know Saudi, the festival?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they asked me to do an electronic set as well as a live set. So I played with my band, and I also got to do like a DJ set, which was really cool.
So
I wasn't
cool.
DJing. I wasn't DJing. I had a DJ, and I was singing all my songs. And yeah, songs from my collaborators. So it was quite strange and unique, I think. Yeah.
And then right before that, you had a stressful week with your gallery, with your exhibition.
Wild, wild, wild. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was just a lot of moving parts. So just mostly logistics because the art was done. And the art that wasn't done was meant to be done on the day as a performance piece or a live art like
Mm.
interaction. So I felt pretty prepared. It's just always, moving people around and starting things on time. You keep on your toes, and then it rained on the day, so
All
and
right. Well,
everything
look,
was out.
we're gonna get there. I want to get to that place. Let's first of all, I just want to say
Yes, yes.
thank you for being here. I'm so excited to chat to
Thank you
you.
for having me.
And second
Yeah.
of all, so do you have some the idea of what's your poison is to be able to have your vice handy. What have you got? It can be okay. Is that a G&T?
It's a gin. I put a bit of lemonade in my G&T, either lemonade or a bit of ginger ale.
Hmm.
But this gin is from it's from Zanzibar.
Konyagi.
I
From
almost
where?
died. It's actually we got it in Zanzibar. It's a product of Tanzania. And man, like my band, I've never seen them this drunk. Like we've been together for years. We are all suffering. We're broken because of this kanyagi. So I thought maybe I'd bring back this newfound gin. But I'm a gin person.
Do you have you is that do you know if that's available in South Africa? Number one, number two, how many bottles did you bring back?
I didn't bring back enough bottles, and nobody wants to see it here after what it did to us. But I don't know if it's available. I should find out. But it's
So
it's not meant to be intense, but it's 35%. Is that normal? It's like
wow,
35.
that's
It's
pretty
35.
good. And also, it's you've just come back from Zanzibar. You're extending your stay technically.
That's good with me. What are you drinking?
So today, so I generally, my whole thing is that every time I try to explore like different whiskeys and stuff, or this whole
Uh-huh.
podcast just started, but this time so like this is the first, this is not a branded thing at all, but I am drinking Scottish Leader, and the reason is that they sent me, I did a TV show that was sponsored by them, and then they
Yeah.
sent me some bottles. So this is not promoting them, but I haven't drank Scottish Leader on my show, so I thought I'd give it a go.
Okay, so you're a whiskey man.
Big time. So, like, this whole podcast started when lockdown started, just like missing seeing people and socializing. So, the concept was drink whiskey and talk to friends and originally it was all just whiskey drinkers, but then as the show sort of people have had
Wow.
all sorts of weird shit. We've got people smoke weed or cigars or gin or in some concoction or
That's
it's all
amazing.
sorts of weird shit.
That's amazing. Um,
Cheers.
can you hear my cheers, cheers, cheers? Thank you so much. Yeah, I chucked a couple raspberries in there, not to feel like an
I like it.
alcoholic.
Looks good too. That's important.
Thanks. Can you hear my kids going wild behind the
You've
door
got
there?
quite a lot of them. Hey, three.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got three, and they're all 2 years apart, so it's always a party somewhere.
How young is the youngest?
My youngest is two, and the
Aye.
oldest is six.
So
Yeah,
you in the thick of it.
I love it. They like they're really fun and
Hmm.
they get along, which is nice. And I think if you start having enough of them, they start canceling each other out. Like the one is putting the other one to bed now.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I've got one, and
Yeah, one feels
mine's.
like a lot.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I. That's exactly what I always say. One feels like a lot, and that's what I don't think we never made it to two because one just felt. I mean, everyone like says, oh, once you have two, whatever, whatever, whatever. But one felt like a handful.
And it was actually two for me that felt like a handful, and then three, you started seeing the older one take care of the smaller one. Yes, baby. Okay, enjoy. He's just come to ask me for tea, but his dad made him tea.
That's
Well, and he knows where to get the tea. Let me just close the door again.
so. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
No, I'm right here.
I wanted to just say. So look, I'm such a fan of what you do, and you're the career path you're on is so phenomenal. But the thing I wanted to actually ask you about
Thank you.
is there is a song that you feature on that made me cry, and even though it's very much sort of I think buried somewhere, I think it is one of the greatest South African songs ever made, and it's that song called
Really?
Umhlaba Wonke, the one you did with Urban Village. I don't
Wow.
know what mad voodoo is in that song. It's so simple, but fuck, it's amazing.
That's amazing. You know, I never that song never gets highlighted as a collaboration, a note with a collaboration, and it's one of my favorite songs. I like it a lot too. So thank you.
And how
Yeah.
did you write that song with them, or how is that song? I don't know. That song is magic. Like I feel that song is going to end up on a movie end credits somewhere in the future. You know.
I'm very lucky when it comes to things. I always wish them into existence, so I'll accept it. Um, no, we wrote it in 15 minutes. I think Tubati had prepared something for me in studio, but on my part, I was done in 15 minutes. I didn't have to. And like I said, like the song just fell on my lap, so I can't even
Mm.
take credit for writing it. I just caught it, and sang it into the mic one take, and I was out. So I
Shit.
think there's just an ease I think in creating with some people, and I have it with a handful of people, and it just happens without a lot of work. Yeah.
Who who is a lot of work and who is not a lot?
Some people are a lot of work just because they
Yeah.
don't trust their ideas. They don't trust their own ideas. Okay, baby. I'm gonna have to ask for some help here
No
um,
worries.
to keep my little Nunu's out of the office, but I don't think he's gonna make a noise. I'll get someone if he does.
I'm not fussed. You can come and go.
Cool. But yeah, no, the thing that I find it makes it difficult to move a collaboration along is when when someone is not like maybe comes from a space of previously not being encouraged in the collaboration space. So I like when that happens, then you first have to kind of disarm and just I don't know, like just encourage the thing that makes them different. So I'm always interested in whichever artist I'm with, like what is their USP, what's the unique selling point, and hopefully I can make space to bring that out, more clearly. And I think I'm learning to do that better, but I wasn't always good at being I think I'm a good collaborator now just because of the sensitivity. But before, I was kind of caught up in my own feelings and my own, is it good enough what I'm bringing? I don't really have that anymore as a barrier, because it will be good enough if you present it and you work at it and you kind of listen to what it's supposed to say, you know? Yeah,
If
so
you,
some people just struggle with moving things along because they're second guessing every part of the process. And I've become good at counteracting that energy. So I don't really have a lot of difficult collaborations anymore.
when you find yourself in a situation where you're struggling or it's not working out, do you walk away from it, or how do you navigate that tricky space of actually making it work? I mean, will you work to make it work, or will you go, okay, well, this isn't working? Have you ever sort of stepped off and said, look, this isn't going to happen?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I stepped off for 2 years on a song called Fit Your Life. And
Oh,
came back to it 2 years later, and I listened to the
wow.
beat again. It was like, oh, I heard it differently, and then I wrote something on it, quite quickly. But the first time I heard it, I had nothing to say to it. It didn't speak to me at all. So that happens sometimes. And I had a whole child in between listening to it the first time and the second time. So,
So that's what it
yeah,
needed. That's the song actually needed another human being coming out of your womb.
maybe it needed that. It needed me to grow up a little bit, because it's still the same beat. It didn't
Mm,
change, but I changed. You know,
that's
so
interesting. Wow.
I think stepping away sometimes really helps. And I think anything that's overlabored, you work it until it dies
Mm,
sometimes. But I mean, other times it depends, like how loosely you're holding it. Clay makers are kind of king at this thing of like keeping a loose hand and not, you know, working on something to the point where it just becomes pulp. You kind of have to be malleable with it. So
mm.
I'm learning. I'm not. Sometimes I overlap things and I step off a bit too late as well. But the anxiety of all of that is not really the main driving force. Like I'm really trying to find ways to create, not from a place of fear or like a lack of ideas or a fear that things are gonna run out. Like I trust that every moment has a song. So that it's easier to make now. Yeah.
The one guy I imagine is really hard to work with is that asshole Trezor.
It's my friend.
No, he's my friend too. I'm just joking. He's my good friend.
Yeah,
No, I was playing.
you had
Actually,
me.
he actually's been.
No.
He was trying to. He was sending me stuff now to say. I must ask you about that. You play sport, and I think you're on some national provincial hockey team, and your brother's a
Oh,
coach of an
wow.
under 18 Sharks. Are those things true?
Oh my goodness, Trezor is bringing out the files. Um, my siblings are more accomplished sports people than I am. They went and did it as a career. My sister was a national squash champ for years and years and
Wow.
years, unbeaten. And my brother played for Sharks and Lions, and now he's the under 20 coach. I think under 20 coach. He's a forward coach there. So yeah, I was really into hockey and tennis, and played for the province for a couple years, and had ambitions to be a tennis player. I think I don't know what
Wow. So,
happened. Um,
so
yeah, I don't
you're.
know. I was just it just kind of went away because it needs your 100% dedication. I was supposed to go
Mm.
to sport academies and stop going to normal school, and I think I didn't. I wasn't the kind of child that needed that. I needed, a bit more. Good night. Sleep off.
Good night.
Bedtime. Yeah,
um,
but it was great. I really love sports. I still love sports. I'm playing again. I'm playing hockey, but I'm doing it now a bit less competitively, which I was struggling with that because I'm very competitive. But I'm just
uh-huh.
trying to have fun. Yeah.
So are you still really good at hockey, even though you're not playing professionally?
Um, I I live like quite close to Wanderers, so I'm trying to check out a few clubs, but it's difficult to not want to, get into the best teams. I'm just telling myself that I have no time. I just need to pitch like those 45-year-old people that are still good. In fact, it's 50-year-old people that are still good at sport and they drink beer like in between, like halftime they're drinking beer, but they're still killing it.
That's a
Like I need
very
to use
special type of breed of human. That.
those people are incredible. Yeah, no, I don't know how good I am anymore. I just like at least I'm enjoying it, and I'm playing tennis often as well.
So it
Yeah,
sounds like your whole family like are quite the go-getters. What were your parents like?
so chilled. So the most relaxed parents, my dad had some wooden rackets. We'd take them out every Sunday, every other Sunday. But like, there were teachers. They were deputy and head teachers at a high school in a town called Pedi, between Grahamstown and
I know
King.
exactly where that is. I
Yeah,
was born in PE.
you were born in PE. Yeah.
Mm.
So my parents were teachers there, but my dad had a law degree, and my mom also had ambitions to go into education because of her passion for education, just more on the like Department of Education, Human Resources, that whole thing. And they changed career paths, and my dad went and became a practicing attorney. But we grew up with these like very relaxed community people that are just, my mom is the most difficult person to go to the mall with because everybody wants to greet her, everybody knows her. They're stopping every 5 minutes. She's like the kindest woman I've ever met, so everyone loves her. And it didn't put a lot of pressure on us, but made sure we had those tennis shoes, even though it was expensive for them to keep up with all the equipment. They would support, they'd come to games. It was just it was a relaxed environment, but it was also, I'd say there was a bit of discipline that they held, but not in a way that choked us. And in fact, a lot of us grew up in boarding school. I spent a lot of time in boarding school, and so did my siblings. But my parents were present. So,
Were they musical?
Yeah. My dad is very musical, and my mom comes from a musical family, but my dad is a descendant of a composer my grandfather was quite a prolific composer in the choral music, stimuli sound. E-sound is also like a genre.
From South Africa?
Yeah. It's kind of rural Transkei, but I found some of his music on the SABC archives. But he was a choral composer, wrote a lot of songs. And I redid one of his compositions for my album that I just put out, that song called Tiram. And
so that's one of his songs?
Yeah, he did the original composition. I finished it. I finished it and wrote some strings to it, put some strings in it, and kind of wrote a verse speaking to him, thanking him for music, because I can see like it's completely in the bloodline because it's such a clear gift in my family. My sister's extremely musical. In fact, if you guys think I can sing, like you need to hear my sister. Actually,
did you guys jam around the piano when you were kids and stuff?
We did. She's the pianist, and my brother also played piano. He got bullied out of piano because they were calling him Blackhoven, his rugby team. But
really,
these are boys' schools.
That's hectic. I mean, it's quite a cool name actually, Blackhoven. I quite like it.
It is quite cool, but they were not using it in a.
No, I know.
Like, yeah,
I can imagine.
You're an assembly boy, But yeah, he's getting back into music now. He's 2 years younger than me. I mean, we really get along. But my sister's an incredible musician, and we used to get called whenever there was family to come and entertain them. When there's guests in the house and in the lounge, and we called, and we'd always stand around the piano. My cousins would be there, and the go-to song was.
That's what I was going to
ask. Without fail, that was the one.
And all the harmonies.
For a moment in time. And then it would go down. Everyone's voices would be flexing. It was a lot. Yeah.
So what was you growing up? What music were you listening to?
So I think because of growing up in boarding school, I went to boarding school quite young. So grade 2, grade. By the time I was in grade 1, I'd been in boarding school for a year. I mean, grade extended 1, so grade 3, right?
Isn't that very young to be in boarding school? Isn't that a very tough age to be in boarding school? Or
I guess so, but in Pedi, my parents did let me go to the local school for my first year of school, but I was bullied the whole year and sat next to a 10-year-old who had failed grade 1 a couple times, and she was taking my pencils and taking my lunch, and I just took it the whole year. Only to drop from like being number 1, like my class, to like being a mute essentially.
Because the bully took your confidence so that you were not able to function at school.
I struggled because she kind of co-opted me into her friendship group, which is like comprised of like grade 4 kids, because she was actually just she just needed remedial learning and a different path.
Right.
But there was no infrastructure for that. So she's probably just like a frustrated child who's not passing, but she's got a learning disability. So here, is little old me, and she's stealing my pencils. She's stealing my pencils because her parents can't afford to buy her pencils if she has parents. So it's a school in a location in Pedi. Imagine Pedi's already an impoverished town. You can imagine the location or the township. So in retrospect, I get like it was just one of those things. It's the space. My grade one teacher was an alcoholic who was clearly in an abusive relationship because we used to see her with marks, but she would come to school on Monday and teach us, and she was a little bit aggressive, and there was a bit of corporal punishment. So my parents were like, either we take her, because they were teaching at a high school, so there was no primary school that they were linked to, but the high school that they had cultivated was beautiful. It had a choir and a garden, and my dad was like a dad to them, and my mom was really sweet. So unfortunately, there wasn't a primary school that they were linked to, and they had to send me to boarding school, and the closest place was St. Andrew's Prep, which couldn't have been cheap for teachers. So I really respect, and like I look back at that decision with a lot of respect and gratitude, but it was hard being away from home when I was 6 years old. But yeah, so the music was formed by that because I got there, I was listening, like grew up with, obviously, I get there and I'm one of the few black children, and then you're listening to all kinds of music. But I remember by the time I was in grade 7, grade 8, I think I was like a Tool fan. I was really into. In fact, what's that? I like Perfect Circle. I really like Perfect Circle, which I thought.
Read somewhere you were in a band at one point, some alternative rock band. So you
I
were
was in some, yeah.
Tool and Perfect Circle are also light years apart.
I know, but it's actually they're similar bands, but they also not. And but I liked singer-songwriters. I got into like Bob Dylan and Jeff Buckley. I got into a lot of melancholy. I mean, I went as far as liking Tom Waits. I still love Tom Waits. And then there's the education at home, where my dad was actually a pop connoisseur. He knew everything from Elvis to ABBA. And then school is teaching us all the Beatles songs, and I'm learning. If you could wake me up at 3:00, I can sing you almost like any ABBA song, anything, anything by Elton John. I think I even know Blessed Bridges. Like it's insane, that whole catalog. But counteracted with it was an interest in African music, and it was just one teacher that was starting to tell us about Dorothy Masuka and Miriam Makeba, and then like an interest in these local storytellers started to grow. That blew my world wide open, because then I went on my own rabbit hole and discovered that, I was spending all my money on like South African jazz, Sipho Gumede, the whole Melt 2000 catalog. I spent like my teenage pocket money on it. And then I got into house, and it was like 45 BPM, DJ Bubbles. Askedo Church Grooves, I'm telling you my age.
Bongo Muffin?
Bongo Muffin was there, but that was like too pop for me. I thought I was too cool for that.
Too pop, wow.
Yeah, imagine. So I was a bit of a strange kid, but like a lot of alternative tastes. And Radiohead is probably one of my favorite bands even today. But I think I find myself gravitating towards storytellers and soundscapers. So Bonobo, it's very wide. It's very wide. Yeah.
Who was introducing you to Sipho Gumede and the Melt catalog and all that stuff?
You would think that it was my dad, but my dad had Elvis. He had like dance. He had dance vinyls. So Foxtrot. He was a ballroom dancer in his spare time, like a proper gentleman. But he was collecting a lot of stuff. Brenda and the Big Dudes. So that kind of. I'm not really sure. I think it was just, late night SABC TV. I ran into this band called Unofficial Language. Then I found out Paul Hamner. Then the next thing I'm listening to like Don Laka and Sipho Gumede, and I've bought all of their CDs, So I found out that I really like bass-led projects as well from that. Like it's taken my taste to Avishai Cohen, to Carla Mombelli, to Victor Wooten.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the big tragedies, is that who teaches South African music? It's so rich. We have such amazing South African catalog that is not taught, is not documented anywhere. I know that that amazing guitarist Billy Monema is actually doing a book right now, but
Amazing.
there isn't anything. How do you, you have to discover that yourself.
You
It's
do.
very frustrating. Even the Makebas and the Letta Mbulus and the Dorothy Masukas. Where can you read or find out anything about them? You can't.
It's quite sad. I mean, also that's by design. One of the best books on Miri Makeba, where she has a hand in telling the story, was banned, and Naomi Younger brought it from the States for me as a gift, and I
Huh.
cried when I read that story because it tells of her pain and like how she had to move from country to country, and it's not glamorous at all.
Mm.
But Naomi Younger has also been the person who's been instrumental in my education because he's been friends with these people like Brahu and also Madala Kunene. He educates a lot of us young people about what's going on. I mean, Madala sold out Carnegie Hall, for
Yeah.
goodness sake, and
I
he's
mean,
walking around.
there's a lot. We have a lot of stories like that that are phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean, Hugh knocked the Rolling Stones off the U.S. Billboard charts. Take that. You know.
no, bro, he was a proper superstar. And you don't understand the weight of that until you travel. And I remember recently, like in fact, just last year, I was in LA, and then I to write for a month, and I went past New York for a couple of days, and my aunt was going to Abyssinia Baptist Church, which is kind of like an activist space. They had a whole funeral, a memorial service for Whitney. They had every time like some of these important activists from South Africa passed on, that place would stand still. But they also had relationships with them when they were still alive. They helped them mobilize, a lot of
Mm.
their activism that side. So this whole community at the Abyssinia Baptist Church heard that a young South African musician was there, and they stopped their service, gave me so much love on the back of loving Brahu and Miriam. They don't care how good I am. They were just like, they heard South African, they heard musician, they heard here to play. And the next thing, I am being invited to lunches. I'm being told this is a home for me whenever I need people to help spread the word about my shows. If I need a place to stay, if I forgot
But
my
you don't
toothbrush.
get that here, right?
From Brahu. No,
But you
no,
don't
no.
get it here.
I mean, yeah, I guess people are going through this stuff here, and I'm supposed to, be able to have my own way to move around here,
I mean, what
essentially.
I'm
Yeah.
saying is that is amazing, and
Yeah.
I love to hear that. But we don't treasure our treasures over here, don't you think? Or
No, it's very sad,
mm,
and it's evident. It's evident in the way that we would, a whole like Legends Fund will disappear and all of those things, where in the
mm,
twilight of people's careers, they're scraping together money for medical bills, money, to even bury themselves. It's difficult, and I don't think that's right.
no,
And I think it's one of the things that really makes me feel like, as a community of African young live music practitioners, if we really talk about Ubuntu or we talk about being African in the true sense, we don't abandon our elders. Like, how are we mobilizing to make sure that these people that have given us a sonic trace, a history, a heritage, a rich
mm.
heritage to build from? How do we take care of them when they're in our midst, and they're still humble as ever and they're still teaching us things? So I find myself getting involved in lots of things to make sure that like they're okay. The ones that are around us are still okay.
Speaking of which, are you friends by any chance with Pops Muhammad?
I met Pops. We're not friends. We're
Uh,
not friends, but I like him a lot. And yeah, no, I've just been trying to raise a bit of money and help whoever is trying to do something to assist.
mm,
But no, I don't know him. I played with him at a festival in Nokeng. I opened for him. We spoke. We hung out. But I don't see him often.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I love him. I saw something. I thought I read something about you and him doing something together. That's what I was asking. I just really, he's not very well at the moment, but I really love that guy. He's an
Yeah.
incredible human being.
No, no. I do a lot of work with Madala though.
Mm,
But Pops is I'm just like a fan essentially. Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And can I ask you? I just want to ask you about your friendship with Trezor. So I'm very good friends with Trezor. I was just joking
Yeah.
earlier,
No, I
and
know.
I just wanted to ask you how you met him and what it's like working with him.
Sure. Oh man, when I met Trezor, I didn't like him at all. I thought he was moody, um, and I was like, this guy, why did he come out if he's just gonna hide in his hoodie and look at his phone? And he was working on an
Have you ever
album.
said that to him?
Yeah, all the time. I'm like,
Oh, okay, cool.
you're in a cave. But the thing is, the context I didn't have was that he was in the middle of making an album, and he had just come from studio and he popped out because a mutual friend of ours, Ryan Hill, had brought together like what he thought was like interesting young creatives, and he had to come out and mingle. And he did us a courtesy by coming out because I know how all consuming that process is when you're just in the thick of it. And he took a break, came out and saw people, and then went back to studio. So he wasn't even living normal hours. He was probably cross nighting,
I think
and
he's
so
still that guy.
he was a bit grumpy, and he didn't look at us a lot, but he would comment here and there. But he still was like a gentle presence, and I was curious about him. And I'm not really sure how we became friends actually. But when I saw him again, we were writing, and that was the thing that's been happening since. Like we just get together and write. And I didn't live in Joburg, so I'd come from the Eastern Cape and tell him that I'm around, and he'd pick me up and we'd go and jam guitar and talk and write. And I started meeting people around him, and I just knew that this is definitely a friend to keep. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. No, he's a good one.
no, for sure.
I know that would lead me on. So, did you study art or something? One thing I wanted to comment on is your incredible directing eye. That you directing videos as well. And what made me actually think earlier, I wanted to bring it up, is when you were talking about how to handle tricky collaborations. If directing or being a director helps with that, because when you're making a film, you've got a lot of complicated people to organize. And if that helps
Sure.
your to facilitate something like a tricky collab.
Yeah, no, I think all those skills. I'm not really even a trained director, but because I've got creative problem solving skills that I think I'm also just like a structural creative. I
Mm.
thrive within structure. I give myself a lot of structure, and then I tell myself to go crazy. But I'm quite an organized creative, and I'm quite sensitive about my rhythms. I know when I'm in open mode creativity. I know when I'm closing projects. Um, and so that I think it helps with a lot of those different art forms. But for me, it's all the same. Like writing a song, doing a painting. I'm a student of creativity in general,
Mm.
and I think about it all the time. And I'm always listening to people that are thinking and talking about it. And I don't know if I can call myself a creative strategist, but I'm interested in people that are thinking about creative strategy
I
a
like that you
lot.
said creative problem solving. That's a really, especially as a musician, yes, as a producer or as a director. That's your whole having the vision is the easy part. It's the creative uh, solutions that's actually the skill in that.
Yeah, and I think part of it comes with recognizing that creative collaboration, you let people meet you at your weaknesses. So
Mm.
an example is that I'm a band leader, but I was a band leader of like a string section and a horn section and a bassist. And I hear these things. I can't play all of them, but there are
Mm.
people that went to study at UCT and at Michaelis, or I mean at Berkeley. They can play them really well. So
Mm.
what I would do in my band, I would give them a bit of structure and then make sure they've got space to improvise as well, and then close the song with something that takes it back to the story. If I had space to tell a story, because my strength is I'm a songwriter. That's essentially what I am. I'm an accidental performer. I'm not even meant to be in front of people. If I could write songs all day, I would do that. But I found myself being the vehicle for some of these songs, and I've accepted that. But a lot of the songs that I write, I send to other people in other spaces, and but yeah, I was just saying that mix of like having a bit of structure, having a
Mm.
place to tell a story, having a place for improvisation. Even the simplest song can keep giving to you. And I think that's the same with like any art form. If I make sure that if I'm working with a DOP, I give them space to be their creative self because they've studied that. I haven't, but I can make a space for them to be as creative as possible. And if I'm working with an art director, that I like, or we're doing the art department together and we're making props. It's to be open to the ideas, but to help everybody stick to the creative vision. And in the end, it's like making simple choices that makes everyone look good. So I'm learning. sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it's
But I love
amazing.
that attitude. I mean, that I must say that is a rare quality. I think that in artists, because a lot of artists get struggle with that part. They know the creative process, but
Mm.
it's the ability to allow other ideas in is not always. It's not everybody's cup of tea.
But then how do you, that's the thing, it's like, how do you get the strongest piece of work in that time that's available to everyone if you
Hmm.
don't allow everyone's strongest idea to come to the fore?
Well,
The same
this
with
is
the
what
students, you
one
know?
of the
Yeah.
big things that always inspired me was I read when I was very young because I just wanted to make films was a Hitchcock book. And the thing about Hitchcock that really loved, that really inspired so many projects that I've worked on from music is that he never looked through the camera lens. He stood by
Yeah.
the camera and he watched the actors. And his thinking was, look, to your point, the cinematographer's got 30 years of experience. Well, why would I look through the lens and tell him how to frame the shot? He's the best framer in the business. Why am I, it's the same as watching a monitor and say slightly left, slightly right. That's not my job, right? My job as a director is to get the best out of the performance. So I'm going to just stand next to the camera and focus on the actors. And it's, there's so much value in that kind of approach, I think. It allows the best people to do what they do best and still gives you the creative vision to control the part that you're best at.
Yeah. It's very freeing, actually. It's very freeing, and it means that a lot gets done. So,
And people like working with you, I'm
and
assuming as well.
I'm pretty easy. I'm pretty easy to work with, but I'm trying to also like understand my process a bit better. And and what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing about me is that making a space that has a lot of interdisciplinary, like cross pollination, is exciting to me.
Cool.
And that means work with the like a really good dancer, and work with a really good choreographer, and work with someone who's building sets well, and it's giving me a new challenge, because I'm like, okay, I'm making music that I like, I want to make more music that I like, but actually I have a lot of layers, and I think all of those things come from the same place.
Mm.
And you can't do a production, like you can't do a theater production alone. You can't do, but I'm learning that from my mentors and people that
Mm.
I'm close to. I don't know how much you know about Naomi, but he's perfect at that. He's like brilliant. He'll write the music for the opera, but he'll have an idea for the costumes, but he's not going to control the costume maker. And so I think I'm also blessed with really good, role models around me, and people that are kind of built similarly, that
Mm.
I don't have to completely create a Bluetooth. I mean, a blue, what's the word? A blueprint, a Bluetooth, a blueprint from scratch. I can make a mutation from something that
Mm.
it's existing and working, which is cool. Yeah.
Weirdly, Neil Myung just come up in my Facebook feed recently, but I actually don't know what he's been doing for the last many years. Um, has he been doing what? Has he been releasing albums, or has he been doing other work?
So he's been producing albums. He co-produced my half of my last album.
So is he a producer now? Is that what he's been doing?
He's no, he wrote he just debuted this incredible opera called Annes, I think, with
What?
the Dutch ballet, like the national ballet of the Netherlands. He was the guy that made the music, and year before that he's at the Berlin Biennale. He's at every Biennale, everywhere, all the time. Liverpool Biennale, he was there. He doesn't miss it, and they always ask him to do stuff. He curated something for National Arts Festival. He wrote a piece called Amazing Grace. He's busy,
That's
and he's
amazing. I'm
traveling the
so happy
world.
to hear
And
that.
yeah, it's kind of doing real stuff in real time. It's just that he doesn't have a social media presence and doesn't want one. But like I'm
Good for him.
curating a show for him. I'm curating a show for him now through Out Black, which is kind of a creative community entity that I founded. But he's coming back now as a mentor. He's coming back as a performer. But he's about to like rock out a trio. So you must come to the show.
I would love to. I loved
Yeah,
him when I
I'll
last saw him,
invite
which was
you.
a long time ago.
Yeah, he's making music. We score some stuff for film together as well. So we're always busy. But he's just quietly getting on with his life and making amazing things. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell me a bit about Out Black, and I also want to hear about your, all about your Platinum Art exhibition adventure for realsies.
For reals. No, Out Black is great. It's kind of it started as a social experiment for me because I started formalizing what I was doing with my time, and a lot of the money I was making as an individual artist was just going back into helping some of my friends that are just as talented as me. A lot of singer-songwriters are just stuck in the Eastern Cape without a lot of shows, without a lot of things to do and avenues to, make income for themselves. So I started curating these shows where I would take like one musician, usually from the Eastern Cape, and invite another musician from somewhere else, and we'd build the show. And it was mainly curated sonically for like indigenous live African music that's looking into the future. So a lot of fusion. So you'd find like a person is writing Xhosa rock, or there's one guy that's like a blues musician, from East London, Vinnie Mac, and he calls his sound Buffalo City Blues. So and Umle sounds, they sound like Flight of the Conchords, but it's two guys from Edwesi singing about life in the township and things that they see. But the talent for me, like all my friends, have just man, it's unbelievable. So Out Black was just a way to make space for them to remain independent artists. And I did use myself as a little bit of a, like I studied myself. I was like, what kind of support would I need? Okay, a production manager, somebody to help with admin, somebody to make sure that studio is not a difficult and expensive thing. So we make sure that they record projects. We make sure there's a bit of support for post. The budgets aren't great, and we're partnering with
How are
Platinumb.
you financing it? Are you paying for yourself, or do you have sponsors and stuff?
I'm looking for partners that get the vision because we need to preserve this. Platoon's our distributor. They do a bit of a little bit of an injection for the production process, but I'm essentially paying the staff. I'm growing and training them
I
to make
would
sure that
love to help you with that. That's right up my alley, and it's the
for
type
real.
of brand, this is exactly right type of project for me, and I can open doors like to brands and stuff who are trying to play in that space. I would love to talk to you about that further.
Thank you. No, that's amazing. And I mean, for me, I was like, I'll invest in it for a couple of years, and hopefully, once we really get momentum and we're taking artists from point A to B in a proper way, then it's to find partners that just get the vision and want to come alongside it, because it's not like a major profit model. We really need to invest in these artists that
I'm
give
going
them
to
a chance
contact
to
you
create.
about this offline because I want to just know more. I'm sure I can help, and I would love to help. That
Thanks.
really is a great project.
Yeah, that's what I do
Hmm.
with all my time and my money. So it would be nice to talk
Amazing.
more about it. Yeah. No.
Um, and
Yeah.
then so leading on to Platinum, I mean the exhibition, not I mean,
Uh,
what lunacy led you to do that?
oh, the double album
No, the
or
art exhibition.
the art exhibition? The lunacy was that I was trying to do that the same week that the album was dropping, and thank the Lord, the forecast scared us out of it and gave me a whole couple months between it because we postponed the exhibition to this year. But I was already exhausted just from my launch, from like
Hmm.
my first album launch. No, it was, the code word for me this year is, I think it's like simplifying things, but it's also synthesis. I'm kind of acknowledging that I'm the common denominator, first sonically between two worlds that I love deeply. Like I really love what's happening in the electronic dance scene, whether it's like mutations of Amapiano to like how EDM is becoming more African, or how people are trying to take techno back. It's so many interesting conversations and spaces that I love.
Hmm.
But also, I think there's still a space to be a live musician who's a band leader, who cares about sound being great, and what the bass is doing, and expressions of that, that sort of labeled acoustic journey. But like I think there's so much space, and my interest is still there, because I still want to just rock up and be able to play guitar and sing and tell the story and then go home. So there's a synthesis that's happening there where I have to think about the fact that I occupy both these worlds, and sometimes they collapse into each other, and other times they're separate. But that's also happening with all my other art forms that I love. And acknowledging that I'm a visual artist has taken me a long time, because that's what I went to school to study, and the music came later. So this has kind of been like a full circle moment where I'm going back to the pictures that gave me the songs, because I first had these pictures in my mind and then I described them and wrote these songs, but actually the visuals were always there, which is why it's easy for me to like, um, direct my videos and create visual worlds around the music, because I can see the stuff. So yeah, I'm just putting it all together. That's why I had that exhibition, just to say these things live in the same world for me.
Couldn't make it because I was in Cape Town that week, but I wanted to know, can you describe to me your visual art style when it comes to what you're exhibiting, if that's possible?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's really simple. So I think I'm more of a conceptual artist because I like installation. But what I like about installation is that it holds a lot of things. I can have, I can describe one room to you, which I called the last courtroom, the final courtroom, but it's in Xhosa, inkundla yokugqibela, inkonzo yokugqibela. So it's got a double title: the final courtroom, the final church service, something like that. But it's kind of coding these spaces as spaces of violence. And when you walk in, there's a podium, and there are benches that I got made, and they're pews. In fact, you can look at them as pews, you can look at them as benches in a courtroom. In the corner, there was a screen which was playing an animation that I did in collaboration with Tabang Lehoye, an incredible paintmation artist. And we had done a video for Blood, Guns and Revolutions, which was the first song I wrote in response to the violence on the Platinumb belt. We actually won a Lurie Award for it. So that's showing in the corner almost as like the evidence box. They sometimes have a TV in the courtroom. So you sit in the courtroom and that's what you see. But the first thing that happens, you see a skull that smells rancid, and that's the mark of a traitor, and that's sitting right in front of the pulpit. And if you look behind you, there were 3 giant drawings of what I call the fondling fathers. And it's a picture of Rhodes, Zuma, and the guy that killed Uyinene. I can't remember his surname now, but
Yeah.
the post office murder that got the country into like the worst collective trauma that we've seen in a while. And those three giant paintings of those men were hanging in the back of the courtroom. And yeah, so in that piece, like the series of those men, it's called the Rhodes is equal to the Zuma is equal to the Zuma is equal to the man. So the Rhodes is equal to the Zuma. Zuma actually means the rapists, like the rapist. Zuma in Zulu means rapist, and then
Wow,
Zuma.
that is not something I've heard before.
Yeah, uncanny and
Crazy.
And the man, just like the trickle down effect. It's kind of like an ahistorical view of violence, and that we can't separate these things. The man in society is allowed to be violent because there's a trace of violence in history and in society, and an accepted violence in leadership and all of those things. So yeah, it's a space where you can kind of make up your own mind about what's going on, but that's probably the 4th installation, But I took people through a series of installations that were activated by performance pieces. And before you went into the courtroom outside, there was the string section playing a piece that I'd composed called Blood Strings, and then there was a poet reciting a piece, and it kind of felt like a dirge. So some of it's quite painful, but a lot of it went into a lighter space of me activating like a lot of nostalgia and collective memory by putting a diagram on the floor that I performed live. So I drew this diagram of a hopscotch that a lot of us know, and then people just started interacting with this diagram because they know the hopscotch.
Cool.
And I had composed a song to it called Tiram. So there's a backstory. So it's like, I'm just giving you the framework, but like people that know the song, it immediately activates that like, oh, this is the backstory to the song that we know, but here's the diagram. So there were a lot of things like that happening, and people moving from one performance to the next, and it was quite an intense day. And it ended with that performance with the string section at the amphitheater. Yeah.
Wow.
But just before that, I actually did some live painting in my process room, where all my paintings and my paint and like charcoal and my messy room, and I lit that room neon pink, and some people got to see me do like a meditation drawing before going on stage. And yeah, it's an experiment.
Do people use the word prolific around you a lot by any chance?
No.
Are you crazy busy? How busy must you be? I mean, the
No.
levels you see, you're doing all these things, but you're doing them properly on very deep levels. How are you managing all this shit? This is crazy.
I, no, I'm not doing a lot actually. I feel like I'm doing just enough of the things that I love. Like I've got energy for them, and I have a great team as well. Like I'm able to delegate, and I'm trying to trust people to run with things a bit more. Sometimes there's a crash here and there, but
Hmm.
it's really like, you know, I have to acknowledge the fact that in some ways I am in leadership roles, and I have to learn not to micromanage people. I have a lot of time on my hands to think about things that I really want to think about, and I do them. But I don't know about prolific. I just like have a list. I just have a to-do list and I follow it. Essentially, yeah.
Favorite artist in the world? Art, not music. I'm gonna do that one next. Favorite artist.
Artist. Ooh, um, it's actually a friend of mine. But I like maybe three artists right now, but I've liked them for a long time. There's an artist called Simpiwe Nzube, and he's got this universe that he's created called the universe of the Pink Oracle, and he has these paintings that sometimes he'll sew a shirt onto a painting and it'll grow legs. They're like paintings that turn into sculptures,
Ooh.
and he is amazing. Like he's got a fantastical world. You can see his influences are surrealist, and he's exploring that with African folklore. And he's a good friend. I met him in LA actually, and he came to a show of mine, and I was like, he's come to a show, and I'm a fan. So we're like looking at each other, and then I went to see his studio. So I'm like, I know who you are, and he's like, how do you know who I am? And I went to his studio in LA, and we've just been talking like ever since. And but I think also what's making me appreciate him more as someone that I can call my favorite artist is understanding a little bit more about his process. I'm trying to think of someone a bit older. Um, Man, I can't think of someone like Nandi Pump.
That's
I really love Nandi Pum's work. I really
mm.
love Mary Sibanda. Um, I think a lot of South African artists are very strong, actually. Uh, Chemutai Ngoko is also a painter that I like. She's Kenyan. Yeah, lots of young storytellers have my attention. The same way that I think like the most interesting writers now, are like young South Africans, young Nigerians. There's a
Mm.
there's a beautiful something happening, in the way that people are using language in all art forms that I'm quite interested in. And I think it's a bit of an FU to some of the rules, but like a charged creativity that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Most inspirational musical artist for you, either now or ever, whichever's easiest.
Oh, freaking hell. These questions are so hard.
Why is that hard?
um, it's difficult. It's difficult. I don't know. How do you even?
Okay, like so easy answers to start growing up.
Yeah.
The artist that made you wanna do what you're doing. There's got to be one. And if you say Perfect Circle, I'll hang up.
No, it's definitely not perfect circle. Um, Weirdly enough, my first two. Okay, so I bought a Busim Shango album the
Cool.
same day that I bought a Savage Garden album. I know that's weird, but it tells you a lot
Wow.
about me.
That's awesome. Um,
Because I thought Savage Garden were brilliant storytellers, and they had fascinating melodies, and they were so vulnerable. I think for two young dudes living in California, wherever they lived. But Busim Shango to me, it was like flying. You know, I would say currently in my peers, one of the people that I look up to the most is it's between Duduzo Makatini and Naomi Yanga, hands down. Yeah.
it's amazing.
And
Most promising artist in South Africa today.
for two different reasons, I would say, yo, that's tough, man. That's also tough.
Am
Oh,
I,
Zoe Dich is incredible. Her talent
oh,
is
I love
unmatched.
her. I love her. She is
I think,
incredible.
yeah, her talent is unmatched. I even think the same thing about someone like Ami Falco, who's in a slightly different
Oh,
space, but she's prolific. and has an amazing future. And like, yeah, I think my friend, Sanal musician, has got something special. Something about
Right.
coding a sound and having a way for people to just hear the first two notes and know that it comes from your universe. There's really something special about that. Yeah.
Most annoying person in the music industry.
Why? It's a waste of time, guys. Yo,
Say that again?
you're not getting. I'm saying shade is a waste of time. You're not getting this answer
No,
out
I'm
of
just
me.
playing. I'm just playing. Okay, I
I have
got.
an answer to you, but I'm definitely not telling you because he's really annoying. So, no.
I'm trying to figure out if there's a better way to ask that question, but I'll leave it. I'll leave it. Um, some people don't mind answering that question, so I'll just throw it out there. Okay, two
No,
more questions for you, and I'll let you be. The first one is this is my Oprah. So I have an Oprah question and a standard question to end the interviews. The Oprah question is, what do you think is, or what is the hardest obstacle that you've had to overcome in your life that has made you into the beast that you are?
no, I have not overcome the obstacle. It is a constant obstacle. Can I tell you about it?
Please.
Um, yeah, so I always go back to this when I break it down. Like, what is music trying to teach me? It's trying to teach me how to treat people, And I really want to walk away from spaces, having left, and people are saying that I treated them well and I treated them fairly, but it's just like working out these blind spots and figuring out your, even within these creative relationships, what your love languages are, how you communicate, to the point where this creative space is so sensitive and so vulnerable that you might even have to be aware of your collaborators' traumas, to be a good collaborator. So people, man, learning how to make sense in my community and learning how to be good to people. That is what creativity is trying to teach me, I think. It's not about just the output. Yeah.
That's
So I'm learning
powerful.
that lesson. Yeah.
And
I
what
get
about
it
in your
wrong
life?
sometimes.
What are the things in your own life that you've had to, um, to get to where you are going? The certain life lessons you have to learn in order to move forward. Do you know what those life lessons have been for you?
Yeah, I can say it in a couple of words. Plan on what people can deliver, even if you believe in their potential.
Yeah.
You will really stress yourself out if you plan on people's potential. And I'm chronic, like I used to do that all the time. I do that all the time. I'm done, but I had to learn the lesson. And it's a lesson that you have to learn because if you plan on people's potential, even if their intentions are good and they want to meet that potential, if they aren't ready, you're kind of setting yourselves all up for disappointment. So it's like, um, I'm trying to learn the balance between having the patience to watch people become who they want to be and believing in their potential, but being realistic about what they can do now. Yeah, it's flames out here.
That's tough. That's tough.
It's
Cool.
good
Okay,
though.
last question. It's. I'm not going to say it's an easy one. It might be. It might not be. Um,
Yeah.
can you recommend? So it's like a pass the torch thing with this show. So
Yes.
it's a global show. It does really well around the world. And what I try to do is like introduce amazing people to the rest of the world.
Oh wow.
Can you recommend someone that you think should be on that has a great story to tell?
Man, there's a genius living on the other side of the world. Her name is Shungudzo. She is
Hold
originally
on, I have to write this
Zimbabwean.
down. One second.
She lives
How do
in
you
she
spell
lives in
Shungutsu?
LA. Shungudzo is Shungu. Shungudzo DZO. Yeah, I would
Shungutsu.
definitely say Shungudzo, and I would say Nonkupiri. Yeah, you guys need to
Oh,
speak to Nonku.
I've tried to get Nankapuri a few times. She's
There's a whole
tough.
world
She's
there
tough. I want to. I want to.
for sure.
Um,
But in the
I
meantime,
worked
someone
with
like
Ray a few times back in the day.
amazing, amazing.
Really amazing.
I
Life
never got
highlight
to meet.
working with him.
I never got to meet Uncle Ray at all, but I've heard amazing things, and I see him and his daughter. So wow.
I would
Yeah,
love to. Okay, I will ask her. Thank you for that. So, can you? Is it possible you could introduce me to Shigudzo?
definitely. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Maybe poke an uncle to see if she'll come on and chat to you as well.
Oh, do that. That would be amazing.
She comes to planet Earth sometimes when I try to look for her on her planet. So you would let
I
me
love
know.
that. Saki,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on to What's Your Poison. I love you so much. I love your work. I love how you move in the world, and I'm just honored that you came to chat. So thank you, and bringing your Zanzibarian gin was a special treat too.
Oh wow, thank you for making space for me and asking such amazing questions. I appreciate the time. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.